Hey there guys, alright, today we are back with some more Kings and Generals. This time, the Roman Legion against the Macedonian Phalanx. This should be interesting. Before we dive into the video, I would like to remind you to go check out the links down below in the description box or in my pinned comment in the comment section. We've got links to my Twitch channel, which is where I am currently playing through Ghost of Tsushima, New Game Plus, as well as Divinity Original Sin 2. Would love to have you guys there and hanging out with the rest of us that show up. I stream Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday nights from 6 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time, 9 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time. Love to have you. The other link I would suggest you check out is the link to my gaming channel. That's where I just upload old stream VODs. Occasionally I might do an edited video, but those take a lot of time, and I don't make money from that channel, so there's no real point in me doing it. So, yeah. Anyways. Now that that's covered, go ahead and learn. Well, I already know the Roman Legion, I would say, is going to win this. They're far more maneuverable than the Macedonian Phalanx. I mean, obviously, head-to-head, the Phalanx is going to win because it's got the long-ass spears. But if the Romans can close that distance or somehow get to the size of the Phalanx is dead. The Roman Legion was the Roman progression, I guess, of the Phalanx. It was the part of the Roman natural progression from going from Greek hoplite Phalanx formation to the Roman Legion. Anyways, go ahead, just dive right in. This is an intro that I don't remember. New, I think. Maybe. It might have been an intro in one of the previous Kings and Generals I've reacted to, but I don't remember.
In our previous video, we discussed how the Romans faced off against and managed to defeat Carthage's mercenary army. And in this video, we shall continue looking at Rome's enemies. In the wake of Hannibal's defeat at Zama, Rome turned its attention to the Antigonid kingdom of Macedon in the east. But even before this time, the Roman legions and the Macedonian phalanx had fought a series of epic clashes, and they would fight many more. In this video, we shall illustrate how the Roman legions fought and eventually gained.
Whenever I watch Kings and Generals videos, they always make me want to back and play some Total War. But then I never do.
Mastery over the Hellenistic phalanxes of Alexander's successor kingdoms. In the year 334 BC, Alexander the Great and his elite Macedonian
Alexander the Quite Alright
army crossed the Hellespont and began destroying Persian armies in their eastward march to conquer the Achaemenids. At the river Granicus, Issus, Gaugamela, and against Porus at the Hydaspes, Alexander's soldiers proved themselves superior to their foe on every occasion. At the core of this force was a phalanx, a densely packed formation of 9,000 highly trained phalangites called Peshetyroi, the Foot Companions. After his stunning successes, Alexander passed away in 323 in the city of
one of the greatest what-ifs is he had survived. He had not been, I believe, murdered, assassinated, poisoned, or even, I think it's leaned towards he was poisoned. A little rough on the Alexander history right now. So, but yeah, died so young.
Babylon. Unsurprisingly, his generals began fighting almost immediately after his death, eventually establishing the three primary successor kingdoms: Ptolemaic Egypt, Antigonid Macedon, and the Seleucid Empire. These new Hellenistic states fought in similar phalanxes to their conquering predecessors, and this would be the unit the Romans would eventually face when they came into contact with the Greek world. In ancient warfare, unit cohesion was the absolute key to victory, due to the way in which each soldier protected the side of the soldier next to him.
Much like the Roman Legion.
Another pivotal element was morale. Most casualties in ancient battles occurred not during the fighting itself, but the rout afterward.
And this is it wasn't just ancient times, words, come on, form. It would also be throughout the medieval period, up until really the invention of guns. The use of guns in warfare isn't. That's when we start seeing the casualties actually not happening during the rout, but really happening just during the primary fighting. Of course, for probably the first couple hundred years or so of the use of gunpowder, the rout still would have significant casualty rates, similar to that of the medieval and ancient times, but it'd start to even out, and then of course modern day now, not really in the rout so much. You don't really rout, and I'm not a studier of modern warfare, so I can't really say too much on what it's like for the modern warfare, but I don't. It's even. I'll say it's evened out.
And bringing the enemy to this point was the primary goal of most ancient generals. Before battle was joined between legion and phalanx, the Roman velites would have thrown their light javelins, while the
we skipped. We. All right, we're already talking about the Roman legion. I missed the transition.
Hastati threw their pila at the phalangites. Most would have deflected off their shield.
I thought we were still talking about the formation of the phalanx. Whoopsies.
Or the long 45-degree angled pikes, but a great many would have also found their mark, some pinning the phalangites' arms to their shields and others killing them outright. Then came the deafening clatter as the small iron pike heads hit the Roman scutum. The 5 ranks of sarissa which protruded in front of the line would have claimed many Roman lives, but then the Romans had options. By 280 BC, at the Battle of Asculum, the Romans had learned that they needed to get in close, past the spear points.
I mean, I feel like that was pretty obvious.
They would charge with shields locked, or feint low to bait the spears into pointing upwards,
That's some
and
headbutts
then
going
rush
on here.
under the pikes, where the phalangite was almost useless and the legionary was in their element. There were many things which affected the way in which hand-to-hand combat between phalanx and legion went, including terrain, equipment, leadership, and deployment, which shall be discussed now. In this era, unit cohesion was especially dependent on the type of terrain battles were fought upon, and this is particularly the case in the clash between the legion and phalanx. In general, rough terrain was damaging to any ancient military formation, but it was more so the case with a sarissa phalanx, where all phalangites needed to be tightly packed for the forest of pikes to have their devastating impact. Meanwhile, the
Yes, so yeah, you couldn't if you wanted your phalanx to be, effective as a phalanx can be, is you can't split it up. Whereas the legion, which is why Rome transformed from the phalanx to the legion, is that these terrains, they need to be able to maneuver and not lose and still maintain a high level of cohesion while still being separated, right? And that is the legion. The legion allows them to split up like this and still maintain a high level of military cohesion.
Manipular legion
and
been
move
adopted
fast
by
at the
the
same
Romans
time.
as a replacement for their Greek-style phalanx, precisely because of the necessity to maneuver in the mountains of central Italy against the Samnites.
I said that.
In short, the flexibility of the maniples to bend and stretch where needed meant that they performed much better in mountainous terrain, whereas the phalanx ideally required flat ground to perform properly. The contrast in performance between the two formations was shown clearly at the Battle of Pydna in 168 BC. At the beginning of the battle, the Antigonid phalanx, deployed on a flat plain, drove away the Roman velite skirmishers and hastati without much effort. The Roman legions could hardly even touch the phalangites. But then the Romans purposefully retreated onto the mountain slopes behind them, and the Macedonians pursued. As they advanced up the mountain, the phalangites began to fray and split, allowing the Roman centurions to lead their men into the formation's gaps. With their forest of spears disrupted by the terrain, the more flexible Romans cut the phalangites to pieces, and the remaining Antigonid forces fled. The Phalangites in Hellenistic armies used the sarissa, a two-handed iron-headed pike around 16 to 21 feet in length, while their shafts were made of either cornel or ash wood and were around 1.5 inches in diameter. The iron heads of the sarissae were surprisingly small, designed to pierce armor and shields. The
smaller the point, the easier it is at penetrating. That could be taken so out of context, oh god.
Roman poet Gratius described them as little teeth. In addition, the pike also had a butt spike, which allowed it to be stuck in the ground, or functioned as a secondary weapon if the main head was broken away. In addition, they had a short sword as a last resort. For protection, the Phalangitae wore bronze helmets of many kinds, especially the Pylos and Corinthian. On their torso, the linothorax linen cuirass or a bronze cuirass were the most common types of protection, while the legs were protected by clip-on greaves. As their spears were two-handed, they could only use a smaller shield strapped to their arm, known as the pelte. Meanwhile, the Roman hastati were equipped in the lightest manner of the legion's heavy infantry line. They were poorer and likely armoured with a lighter pectoral slab and a single beam.
Literally looks like just a disc of bronze.
On top of this armour, which was probably lighter than that of their Phalangitae opponents, they possessed the heavy scutum shield, which was far heavier than the shield held by the Phalangitaes. Despite this, the hastati in the first line probably had a speed advantage. Like the rest of the Roman line, they were armed with the roughly 85 cm long gladius as their primary weapon, which they were trained to use both in an organised maniple or as an individual fencing weapon. In addition, they possessed their two pila, throwing javelins, which made them into a hybrid missile troop as well as a sword-wielding heavy infantry unit. When thrown en masse at the Phalangitaes, it would cause them to discard their crucial shields and make them even more vulnerable. In contrast, the Phalangitaes were purely long-range melee units who, if the legionaries made it past the bristling pikes, were almost useless. The manner in which both armies were led was also a key factor in their performance, and is profoundly influenced by the culture and politics of both Rome and the Eastern Greek kingdoms. The Hellenistic kings considered themselves descendants of Alexander the Great, and conducted themselves in this manner. From Heraclea to Beneventum, Pyrrhus of Epirus was always in the thick of the fighting, and was eventually killed in battle against the Argives. Philip V of Macedon was personally leading his phalanx on the ridge at Cenocephali, and Seleucid Emperor Antiochus III charged at the head of his cataphracti cavalry at Magnesia, essentially copying their famous progenitor Alexander himself. This focus on the personal heroism of a Hellenistic monarch in hand-to-hand combat deprived the rigid phalanx of much-needed leadership, which was detrimental in its battles against the
I can see
legion.
that. I mean, how, because the leadership that they would expect would be still behind them, probably overlooking battle or far enough back with a bodyguard around him. They're still not really up close with those. I don't know, part of me feels like the method of the Seleucids and Antigonids would perhaps be a bit better on the morale side. Because you know that your king, your leader, is fighting with you, right? You know that they are going to be fighting with you. They may not be fighting in your unit, right? They might not be with the pikes. They might be on the horses like the Seleucid emperor. But they're still, going to be in the fight. To me, that'd be something like should boost morale in my head.
While Roman generals did engage in personal combat with their troops, it was the exception rather than the rule.
Yep.
Most of the time, consuls led from horseback just behind their battle line. This gave the commander an elevated position on the battlefield.
You know what? Okay, they're still up close. They're not exactly far back. They're behind the line. You know what? Yeah, the Roman would give more morale here. You know, you got your leader right behind you.
As well as a platform from which they could move to sections of the field that needed their attention. An example of this is once again the battle at Cynocephaly, where Quinctius Flaminius observed his left flank collapsing under the sheer weight of the Phalanx. At that moment, he decided he could be more useful elsewhere and rode to his right flank, which proceeded to crush the unprepared and undeployed Macedonian left with his assistance. After that, another event occurred which shows the initiative of Roman captains compared to their Macedonian adversaries. As the majority of the Roman right flank chased the routing Macedonian left, a lone military tribune managed to rally a significant number of legionaries to him and crashed into the seemingly triumphant Macedonian right, an action which won the battle for Rome.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Rome, I would say, with the legion system, kind of like the system that Napoleon has in the Napoleonic Wars, his coalition wars, where the armies are kind of, it's technically one army, but it's split up into smaller corps, right? And the corps themselves can take on their own initiative for the most part. It's kind of what you see here with the Roman legion.
This kind of action, where a small portion of a legion could act alone, was a uniquely Roman characteristic, and was rarely seen in the Phalanx, which needed to function in as big a mass as possible to be effective. In the Roman legions there was a high amount of command and control, which was pushed down to the lowest ranks, a trait which is not evident in the Hellenistic militaries. The Roman centurion was an influential and powerful figure in the legion, and we see them taking their own initiative at Pydna to get their troops into the gaps as the Phalanx opened up. We are also aware that senior centurions participated directly in the consular leadership of a Roman army. As mentioned before, the tribune at Cynocephaly felt confident enough in his ability and authority without consulting his overall commander that he dispatched 20 maniples to the other flank to attack the enemy in the rear. More so at Magnesia, we not only see a tribune rallying fleeing soldiers, but executing those cowards who refused to reform. Those who did reform were led in a countercharge, all on the officer's own initiative. The conflict between the legionaries and the Phalangites would continue, but the defeat of the successor kingdoms at the hands of the Roman state would prove the hands-down victory for the more flexible and intuitive legions over Alexander's Sarissa phalanx. This series of wars also had consequences for the wider region, as Rome thrust east, annexing Greece, Macedonia and the western part of Asia Minor. As a result of the Greek slaves taken and culture observed during these conquests, the Romans would increasingly adopt Hellenic customs, and it would be said that Rome conquered Greece, but Greece conquered Rome. The mid-republican Manipular legion had forged the Roman state into the dominant force of the Mediterranean, but new threats were soon to arise, which would necessitate the Marian reforms. We will continue this series soon, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel and press the bell button.
It was a good video. I think we kind of got in a, kind of were told this a little bit in the video on when we it was Historia Civilis's video on, I guess, the changes of the Roman Legion or what. I can't remember the exact title, but this is something that was kind of talked about a little bit in one of Historia Civilis' videos. But Kings and Generals brought their own spin on it, and they did a good job. They always do a good job. They're fucking amazing. But that was the Roman Legion against the Macedonian Phalanx. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.